Yes, hello everyone. In my previous video, we were discussing the use case diagram of a library information system. Use case uh, that is return a book, and next the use case removing the books from the library. So mainly we were focusing on the library information system between the actor and the response from a system, so that can be understood in this use case diagram or a use case table also you can say. Here the actor performs the task and the system responds to the whatever the action an actor has performed. And in the return book, so the member arrives at the return counter with set of books and leaves them on the clerk desk. So suppose if at all you want to return them the books, then you keep them on the clerk's desk, and then the clerk issues a request to return the book. The system asks for the identifier of the book, so whatever the barcode which will be pasted on the book, so those has to be entered. So the clerk enters the book identifier. That is, here in our case, what you usually do is the barcode will be scanned. If the identifier is valid, the system marks the book has been returned. So if that barcode is valid, then it will be returned, and informs the clerk if there is a hold placed on the book. So if at all you are placing a hold on a book, placing a hold means for some more time, if at all you have requested, or yes, if you have requested for that particular book to continue that, so that is called as a placing a hold on a book. Otherwise, it notifies the clerk that the identifier is valid. If it is not a valid one, then it tells the clerk that it's not a valid one. The clerk answers in a affirmative or in a negative, and sets the book aside in case there is a hold on a book. If the person is holding a book, the particular book, then he will give a response in an affirmative way, and keep that aside. And if the answer is an affirmative, the system goes to the step 3. If it is affirmative means, if it is in a negative, then the system asks for the uh, identifier of the book. So another book it will identify, and the loop continues until all the books are entered. All the books identifier is shown to the system. So this is what the use of the usage of returning the book. And use case removing books. Removing books is something that is removing from the library itself. Okay, and librarian first identifies the books to be deleted from the system. Okay, deleted from the database also you can say. The clerk issues a request to delete the books. Okay, and the system asks for the identifier of the book. So those books which are to be removed from the library system, so those identifiers or those barcodes, I can say, that has to be first identified, and that has to be scanned for the system. The clerk enters the ID of the book. So here our ID is itself a barcode. The system checks if the book has can be removed using rule 3. What is this rule 3? All books is removable if it is not checked out and if it has no holds. Okay, see, the rule number 3 says that the books should be in such a way that it should not be held by any other person. So whatever the ID you are entering, it should not be held by a person, or it should not be holding by the student. So only those books can be removed from the library. And the system informs the clerk about the success of the deletion operation. It then asks if the clerk wants to delete another book. So suppose if he has deleted successfully, then he can delete another book even, though how many books he wants to delete from the library, then those many books can be deleted. The clerk answers in an affirmative or in a negative way. If he wants to delete it, yes, he may go for the deletion of another. If he doesn't want, he can he go for a negative one also. If the answer is in affirmative, the system goes to the step 3. He goes for the Next he will go for the next book for scanning purpose. So here I am using the word scanning, otherwise it exists this particular use case. So this is a action by the system, and this is a response from the system. An actor entering the data, the system responding for the whatever the action performed by the actor. Okay. Use case member transaction. Member transaction is nothing but whatever the transaction you do, that is the clerk issues a request to generate member transaction. What all the transaction you have done, that is how many books you have taken, so that transaction details it will give. The clerk issues a request to get member transaction. So for a member transaction, suppose if I am the member of a library, so my id should be given as an input. So that's what is there in the response section. The system asks for the user id of the member and the date for which the transactions are needed. So on what day I have made certain transaction, that transaction date is required, and the clerk enters the identity of the user and the date. So if this, when he enters this, if it is valid, then only the system outputs the information about all the transactions completed by the user on the given date. For each transaction, it shows the type of a transaction, that is whether you have borrowed the book, whether you have returned the book, whether you have placed a hold on a book, on which book, even the title also it tells, and it will just prints the transaction of whatever the transaction you have done. So that note or transaction, whatever you have done, it will be printed out and it will be given to the actor. So that is what about the use case member transaction. Use case member transaction means the user id and the date of a date on which the transaction is performed by any member, that has to be given as an input by the clerk. So then you can get the output from the system, the print, that is whatever the transaction you have done through that system. Okay. So that is called as a use case member transaction. Use case place a hold. See, this is place a hold is something like, okay, use case place a hold. We'll see here. This is needed for us, so that's why I have included here that rule section. Placing a hold means the clerk issues a request to place a hold. Suppose if you want any book to keep with you for a longer period of time, that is called as a placing hold. The system asks for the book id, the the id of the member, and the duration of the hold. The book id, of course, it wants the duration of a hold, how many days or how many months you want to hold that particular book. So that is called as a placing a hold on a book. You have reserved that book for a certain duration of time, so that is called as a placing a hold. The clerk enters the identifier of the user, the identity of the book, and the duration. See, the three input he will give. Identity of the user he will give. Next, the identity of the book, which book you want based upon the identity of the book. And next, the how many days or how many months you want. That's what I told. It depends on the user, that is how many days he wants. The system checks that the user and the book identifiers are valid, and that rule 6 is satisfied. So what is this rule 6? Holds can be placed only on books that are currently checked out. See, you cannot. This is the important point to be noted here. So the book which you have taken, only for those books you can place a hold on a book. The book you haven't taken, and if you want to place on a hold, there is no point over there. Okay, there is no meaning in that. So that's why whenever you are using this use case place a hold, that book you should have. If you have a particular book, then only you can go for placing a hold on the particular book. If at all I don't have any book, I cannot go for this option. That is, I cannot go for placing a hold. A book should be with you and you can go for the placing a hold. Otherwise it outputs an appropriate error message. If you at all you don't have a book and if you go for placing hold, it has to definitely show the error message. So that's what the placing a hold on a book. Okay. Here placing a hold, here we have a use case, remove a hold. We'll again shift this table over here for our explanation. Okay, let us enlarge this one. Okay, remove a hold. See, now you have, in the previous use case you had placed a hold on a book. Now remove that hold. It means that the book you are holding, so you want to remove that. The clerk issues a request to remove a hold. Okay, clerk will issue the request. What the clerk has to do, he has to enter the book id and the id of a member. Okay, when he enters these two input, the clerk enters the identity of the user and the identity of the book. The system removes the hold that the user has on the book. So if at all the user is having a book, so it will just remove the hold on the book whatever the user was having. So the input is to input for the system is, the system asks for the book id and the id of the member. It will ask, and the clerk enters the id of the user and the id of the book. So when he presses that remove a hold, so whatever the hold he was in need of, whatever he was holding the book, that will be uh, removed from the from his database. Okay, remove a hold. Okay, use case process hold. So what is this use case process hold? Suppose if at all you are using process hold, how exactly the process hold works. Okay, so here actions performed by the actor, response from the system. The clerk issues a request to process holds. So it should satisfy the rule 5. What is that rule 5? Hold can be placed only when a book with the hold is returned, the appropriate member will be notified. When a book with a hold is returned, the appropriate member will be notified. When he will returning the hold, then he will be notified with the appropriate message. Okay, the clerk issues a request to process holds. Okay. The system asks for the book id. If at all I want any particular book to place a hold, then i should I will be notified that this particular book you are holding. That alert message or a notification I'll get. And how exactly this all holding process will happen, that is given in this use case. This system asks for the book id, which book you want to place a hold. The clerk enters the id of the book. Yes, the clerk obviously he has to enter the id of the book. The system returns the name and phone number of the first member with an uh, unexpired hold on the book. If all holds have expired, the system responds that there is no hold. The system then asks if there are any more books to be processed. See, what is this? If all holds have expired, it means that whether, suppose if I am using two books, so it checks all the holds are completed or not. So here he has used the word as expired. Suppose if at all I'm holding a book for a 1 week, then I should hold it for a 1 week. So whether it checks whether it is completed or not. So for that, yes, if it is having no hold, then the book will be shelved back to the designated location in the library. Otherwise, the clerk prints out the information, place it in the book, uh, and replies in the affirmative or negative. If the answer is yes, the system goes to the step 2. Otherwise, it exists. So it checks whether that particular book is having a hold or not. If it is not having a hold, it will be shelved back. If it is holding, then he will keep it aside and he will take one more, and he will check whether it is having a hold on a particular book. Hold on a particular book means whether that particular book is